Mandukya Karika, Pradam Mantra. Om Bhadram Karne Bhishnuyam Deva Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatra Sthirairangays Tustuvagung Sastanu Vihi Vishema Deva Hitan Yadayu Swasti na Indro Vriddharshava Swasti na Pusha Vishwaveda Swasti nastakshyo Aristanemi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Third chapter is Advaita Prakaran. We have been doing to verse number 15. We have done up to verse number 15. Now, one of our regular listeners, he sent me a message that he could not understand what this term Bhavishya Drishti means and what are its implications. So I'll just explain what exactly why Acharya Shankar uses the term Bhavishya Drishti. Try to understand the fundamental problem with Advaita. More than that, our understanding of Advaita. See, it's enticing to study Advaita. It's glamorous. The people compare Advaita with quantum physics and all that. It gets some kind of validity. But a fundamental problem remains with Advaita. If Advaita is truth, how do you explain this multiplicity? But more than that, more than this multiplicity, they say Advaita is the outcome of the spiritual truth of the Vedas. Vedas are the fountainhead of, everything that is there in Hinduism. The Advaita outlook or Advaita truth, that is the gist of the Vedas, the ultimate of the Vedas. But the Vedas and even the Upanishads say God created the universe or creation took place like this. So what about that? The sacred books on which you are basing your philosophy, and you say that the aim of the Vedas is to bring out Advaita. Why then the Vedas are talking about creation? This is being answered. Multiplicity is one thing, creation is another. Multiplicity has been explained earlier. Now here, the Vedic statements that talk of creation are being explained. Acharya Shankara says that these statements on creation are a mere figure of speech. Bhavishya Drishti means figure of speech. What figure of speech? For example, sometimes you say you are baking the bread. You don't bake the bread. Say planting the trees. Because of this, because of the environmental issues, many countries are taking up afforestation. They're planting forests. Today I was reading in Scotland, the Scottish people, they brought down their forest coverage to less than 2%. Now from there, they're going for forestation once again. What's the expression you use? Planting the trees. You're not planting trees, you're planting saplings. They're planting seeds. Say, it is talked figuratively. Shastramayanda Swami says connection problem. Does anyone else has a connection problem? Because it's not showing on our computer. Now, the simple reason is you don't require scriptures to convey the idea that multiplicity exists in this world. Even a cow knows that cow and the green grass, they're two different things. And that's why the cow moves towards the grass. A dog knows it's about its food. I know. I don't need scriptures. I don't need scriptures to be told that I and this pen, we are different. No, we don't. There's a silly joke. So, there's a silly joke about it. In Darjeeling, there's Tiger Hills. And they say that if you go and watch sunrise from the Tiger Hills, it's marvelous. Now, two gentlemen from Bihar or UP or somewhere, they had also gone to visit Darjeeling. They had had so much of Darjeeling. So, in the morning, they also rushed to see this. How is the sunrise from the Tiger Hills? When the sun came up, these two gentlemen, they were totally dejected. I said, come on. The sunrise is exactly the way we see it in our village. We were expecting that we will be able to see that the sun god is riding a chariot with 7 horses. This mythology. The sun, 7 rays, like 7 horses. If you go to see sunrise somewhere on some mountain peak or near an ocean, you like to see something different. If it's the same sun that you see from your home, if it's the same sun that I see from Belur Math, when we are at Belur Math, we have this Ganga, and you can see the sun rising from Kolkata area. So how is that sunrise different from the sunrise of any other place? So these two gentlemen, they were so correct that if people talk so much about sunrise, so they expected that the sun will be coming on its chariot. When you speak about something, there has to be some novelty about it. One gentleman asked his friend, so what's the news? He says, I'm not keeping well and things are not going well with me. He was one of those complaining types. So the other one says, no, I asked, what is new? Now, when you say something, you don't say the obvious. Multiplicity is something obvious. Why should the Vedas talk about multiplicity? If you go to a school, if you go to a college, you go to learn something new. This is what Acharya Shankara says. So the purpose of the Vedas cannot be to describe multiplicity. You see, the arguments that are going to come, they're so interesting, so exciting. And that's why I've named it Demolishing Duality. Just keep this thing in mind. Let's see. The Hindu race, Brahmins as a class, they memorize the 4 Vedas and kept the Veda intact for the last 10,000 years. In the process, they had to starve. In the process, they were attacked, but they maintained it. It cannot be to explain something that is obvious. Just if you can keep this key, the immensity of the Vedic wisdom will become clear to you. So then why these things are there? These things, the statements that talk about creation, they are there to introduce the subject so that they can be taken forward in future. If you talk to a common man and you say there is no creation, it's all Advaita, will he understand anything? Nowadays, I find many young people coming and asking me about Advaita. They have heard about Advaita here and there. Is it possible for them to understand Advaita? No, it's not. So what they do is they take the obvious. In fact, that is the specialty of the Upanishads and the Veda. They take you exactly from where you are. They tell things that you understand the best. And that's why they will say that, okay, you want wealth, perform yajna. You want to harm your enemies, perform yajna. Because you understand those things. From there, they slowly start taking you up, 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 up. And then they say, there's no friend, no enemy. There's no creation, there's no dissolution. There's no virtue, there's no vice. When I was in my school, there was a very interesting incident. There were some commerce students and there were science students. I'm talking about long ago. In those days, there used to be different streams. So one day, one science student made fun of the commerce students, telling that, look, whatever you are studying here, when you go to college, your professors will say, whatever you have learned, they are all false. Now, what we are going to teach, that is the correct thing. Now, the commerce student, he was intelligent. He knew some basics. He said, no, that does not happen in commerce. That happens with your science. In schools, they teach you one kind of science. When you go to college, they say whatever you have studied is not the ultimate thing. I love this banter. Exactly. You don't talk about theory of relativity to kids. Basic things you can say. But if you want your kids to study physics, you begin with physics by Newton. And from there you take to two streams, high speed and low space. High speed is theory of relativity, small space inside the atoms, quantum physics. And there you find that the laws that you had studied in your school, they no longer hold true. Advaita Vedanta goes exactly like physics. If there is any similarity of Advaita Vedanta with any stream of knowledge, it is physics. Because the way physics begins with our day-to-day world and slowly takes us forward, exactly like that, Advaita first teaches you what you see around you. And from there, slowly lead you up. This is known as Bhavishyat Drishti. Now, basically, what Advaita wants to say is that the reality is very much there. But these realities are like pot space. We use this example. Here is this small bottle. There is space inside it. The moment there is a bottle, the outside space and the inside space they become different. But actually, space remains the same. This is what Advaita says. Now, very interesting arguments ensue after that, after this particular thing. So let's have a look. We just explain whatever we had to. Verse number 16 says, Ashramas trividha hina madhyam utkrishta drishtaya upasanopadishteyam tadartham anukampaya. Why we are having all these different theories of creation and from there leading on towards non-duality? Says there are three stages of life corresponding to the threefold understanding. Threefold understanding is low, mediocre, and very good. As they say, inferior, mediocre, and superior. Understanding of people, the head, they can be broadly classified into three, particularly spiritual understanding. When Swami Vivekananda had returned from the West and he was talking, and very famously he had said in Chennai to professors, when it comes to spirituality, you all are mustached babies. You have big, you have grown mustaches, but you're like babies. You have no understanding. When it comes to spirituality, people are of three kinds: inferior, mediocre, superior. And based on these three categories, India, that is Hinduism, came up with the famous Varnashram Dharma. Very often, nowadays, caste system is ridiculed, criticized, and lots of things happen. But the idea was that depending on what kind of intellect you have, what kind of spiritual understanding, by intellect we don't mean the worldly intellect, we mean spiritual intellect. Actually, Acharya has at some other place told that Varnashram Dharma, it is meant only for those people who want to grow spiritually. If you don't accept the Vedas, if you don't accept the spiritual truths, if you don't want spiritual life, spiritual enlightenment, then Varnashram Dharma is not meant for you. Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Then Brahmacharya, Garhastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. As you grow old, you move more and more towards sannyas. You need to give up. If you don't, you will suffer. Because your worldly understanding, your worldly wisdom has matured by then. You know that there is nothing to gain from this world. What the Hindu outlook says that depending on what kind of spiritual understanding you have developed, you will be born in one of these four varnas. Varnas and caste, these are two different things. We have explained this many times, so we need not go into detail here. Now, we don't know if that is correct because Varnashram Dharma is not, it's not die caste, it's not hidebound. And there's definitely no guarantee that a spiritually advanced person will not be born in a low caste because of some poor karma. Thing is, when you have to run this society, you have to make some framework. Whatever framework you make, there will be some disappointments, there will be some complaints. If you make laws in favor of females, some male members will suffer. If you are gender neutral, truly gender neutral, then again some females will suffer. So this problem will always be there. In India, you see, I find it so funny. Though there are so many laws, and whatever you do, you write anything on your social media post, you can be arrested for that. Intent of hurting the sentiment of others. See, once in a particular state, there was some kind of mourning going on, and there was some kind of roadblocks, and someone wrote why these roadblocks, and some kid just clicked like, and the kid was arrested. Money. See, the kind of things, laws are like that, or laws were like that. Whatever law you make, there will always be some kind of opposition to that. Hindus lived by this. Idea was we have different kinds of understanding, spiritual understanding, and that's why we have superior, mediocre, and inferior. Now, what's the difference? This is very interesting. People with low understanding, they take this world as real and God as unreal. So all these, communists and liberals, and they all belong to this lower mentality. I won't name the caste, the varna for them. You can understand. For you, if the world is real and God is non-existent, you belong to the lowest of the intellect and you belong to the lowest of the class. If you consider the world to be real, God also to be real, world coming from God, you have mediocre talent. If you believe that God alone exists, it's not that God also exists and world also exists, then you have superior intellect. This is the very clear standpoint of Advaita. There are three kinds of intellect. Inferior, world is real, God is unreal. Mediocre, world is real, God is also real, world comes from God. The superior intellect is God alone exists. Brahman alone exists. This is the superior intellect. So, this verse 16 says that all these scriptures that you go through, by scriptures we mean the four Vedas and Upanishads with them. They are meant for people with inferior intellect, people with mediocre intellect. People with superior intellect, they don't need these scriptures. Why? Says that the moment you tell these superior intellects that Atman alone exists, they will understand. They'll understand in one go. When I was studying Mandukya Karika way back in 85, 86, that was a long time ago. So I had asked my teacher, that, is it possible that you say that Atman alone exists and someone will realize it? My teacher immediately said, why? When Sri Ramakrishna taught this to Swami Vivekananda, he instantly understood. If you have superior spiritual understanding, superior spiritual intellect, you will realize that God alone exists. Guru says, Tattvamasi, you are that. The disciple says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. He realizes that. Even if you have just a theoretical understanding, you are superior to those people who consider this world to be real and this world coming from God, who is also real. And for the others, those who are making all the noise in the name of secularism and liberalism and democracy, I am not against these things. I'm fully secular in outlook. All my friends were in my college days and even today, they come from different religions and my best friends. So what I mean to say that when they're talking about secularism and democracy and liberal and so many terms and this and that, their understanding is not clear from the standpoint of scriptures. But what Karika says next, that is explosive. The real purpose of rituals, social structure, mythologies, these are to take people of the inferior and mediocre talents up. People who do not understand anything. Like we are having Mahabharata series in Bengali, of course, and people are listening. And many are telling that, look, we never imagined Mahabharata to be like this. I said, obviously, that's the specialty of Mahabharata. Mahabharata runs clearly at three layers, three level. Even a kid can enjoy the stories of Mahabharata. The adults, they see the similarity between the characters and incidents in Mahabharata with their own life lessons. And people with some maturity, spiritual maturity, they see Mahabharata as the treasure house of spirituality. Well, so you need mythologies, you need stories, you need rituals. They regulate the life of the ordinary intellects. By ordinary intellect, I mean ordinary spiritual intellect. You may be extremely intelligent, you might be an Einstein, but when it comes to spirituality, it's a completely different thing. Swamiji, when he returned from the West, while speaking, many a times he has said that even an ordinary illiterate Hindu living in a village has more understanding about spirituality than the most learned professors in Europe, in America. And today, Indians go to America to learn philosophy. Can there be a bigger stupidity? If you want to know, if you want to know about spirituality, come live in India. Put on the dust of this land on your body. Take dip in holy Ganga, maybe for a year. Purify yourself. Then slowly you might be able to get a glimpse of what the scriptures want to say, not the understanding minded. And these are not only my words, these are my understanding. But first I listened, first I read of these things, I heard of these things from Swami Vivekananda. And it's a fact. When it comes to guns, etc., the West may be great. When it comes to spirituality, it's we. It's we who know it. Advaita, verse number 17 and verse number 18. These are extremely interesting, not very important, but very interesting, where Advaita demolishes duality thoroughly. स्व सिद्धांत व्यवस्थासु द्वैतिनो निश्चिता दृढ़ परस्परम विरुध्यन्ते तैरयम न विरुध्यते. The dualists, they obstinately cling to the conclusions arrived at by their own understanding, their own inquiries. And so they contradict one another, whereas Advaitin find no conflict with them. The dualists. And other than Advaitin, everyone is a dualist. Every religion is a dualism. Every philosophical system is dualism. Thing is, they reach their conclusions by whatever means. God might have told them something, and they might be believing that God might has said something. It might be the product of their own mind. It might be the product of their own logical fallacies, logical inconsistencies, logical consistency. Just to give you an example, this it has happened in the past. that many philosophers wanted to come up with a system of philosophy that will completely remove any possibility of error. So Bertrand Russell came up with his mathematical philosophy, through which he wanted to prove that, well, this is how logic should go. And during his own lifetime, there was famous mathematician Gödel who who proved mathematically that this cannot be done. This cannot be done. While staying in a system, you cannot prove that it is consistent. So while staying within the limits of mathematical logic, you cannot prove that this is correct. So whether it be there logical consistencies, logical inconsistencies, they believe that they are correct. Advaita has no quarrel with them. Absolutely no. Why no? It will be discussed later. Now, I'll give you one quotation from Swamiji, who very beautifully said, Vedanta. He said, this is the whole of religion, Swami says. Probably I talked about this quotation. The Vedanta applied to the various ethnic customs and creed of Hinduism, of India is Hinduism. So when you apply Vedanta to Indian customs, etc., it becomes Hinduism. The first stage, that is Dvaita. Dvaita is the first stage. Applied to the ideas of the ethnic groups of Europe is Christianity. Christianity is hopelessly dualistic. Hopelessly dualistic. As applied to the Semitic groups, Mohammedanism. They don't realize it. They will not understand. They keep talking about formless God. No doubt they talk about formless God. But as far as their religious philosophy is concerned, it's dualistic. God is real, world is real. The Advaita, as applied in its yoga perception form. Yoga is a very important aspect of Advaita. It is Buddhism. Buddhism is just a small segment of Advaita. Very small segment. Buddhists won't even understand it. Now, by religion is meant the Vedanta. The application must vary according to the different needs. Now, as far as Advaita is concerned, actually Vedanta means Advaita. When we are talking about Dvaita and Vishishta Dvaita, it is all Bhavishya Drishti. It is leading you forward, nothing more than that, as we shall see. How? Says, Advaita alone gives you the rationale of relative truths by giving their utility. For example, if you ask a Christian, why do you go to church, say only on Sundays? And why do you go to a church at all? They have no rationale. They will say God has ordered. No, what is the proof that God has ordered? Or not ordered, ordained. My prophet has said like this. If you don't believe in it, he will shoot you dead. Not only shoot you dead, he will torture you to death. And then my God will put you through the hellfire and will put you eternally in the hell. Still, they will not say what is the rationale. Advaita instantly explains. Advaita says, all these rituals and myths and social conduct, all these things are extremely necessary to purify the mind. So it doesn't have to be God ordained. So going to the church, it need not be God ordained. Then why it is God ordained? Because people fear God and people can understand only that language. In one company, group insurance had to be done. One gentleman was not signing. And people tried to make him understand, but he was not willing to sign. And he only would say, no, I don't understand. So finally, the boss, the chief, called him, said, look, either you sign it or you lose the job. He instantly signed it. And the boss asked, "Why were you not signing till now?" He said, "Because no one told me so clearly, in such clear terms." People need to be told in this kind of language: you do it or you go to the hell. And they're scared. And now people have brought hell on this earth. You believe in what we say, or else we will send you to the hell. And if I die in the process, gates of heaven are open for me. So rational is not provided by the dualists themselves. It's a shocking thing. Believe. You go to a Vaishnava. We in India have these Vaishnavas. They're the worst kind of fanatics that India has ever seen. Do they have any rationale for anything that they do? No, they don't. They can't have. They just don't have. Rather, we Advaitins, we supply them with the rational. Not only that, Advaita emphasizes on the importance of religious disciplines and social systems. Every social system, whatever. So a true Advaitin will never object to whatever is happening in America, what is happening in Europe. The social practices of Europe, social practices of America may differ. Advaita will never have objection to that. And India may be different. We will never have any issues with that. Why? Because we understand that these things are extremely necessary for the evolution of the spirit, for the growth of a person, for the growth of the mind. It is extremely important. Do we need Mahabharata? Do we need all these tales which sound so big? Indeed, Advaita says we need. Do we need all these bell ringing and conch blowing? Yes, we need. Who says that? Advaita. Can the dualists explain it? No, they themselves cannot. You go and ask any priest, why do you do it? He says, well, my father used to do, my teacher has said. They don't have any rational explanation. We have that. We know it. And that is why we can explain. When I wrote the book, The World of Religions, one Muslim professor is Dillit. He went through the entire script and he was amazed, and he wrote the preface. In the preface, he very clearly, no, so he wrote the foreword, foreword. In the foreword, he wrote that this is the difference between a man from the world of religion and the person from outside the religion. When somebody is writing from the outside, his understanding will be different. When somebody is living that religion, his perception will be different. Advaita understands. This is what Mandukya Karika is here saying, that we understand why these things are done. You don't know. You do, but you yourself do not know. You ask your Christian friends why they go to the church. My forefathers used to go. The Bible says so. But what is the rationale? People talk about scientific religion. Only Advaita can give the scientific basis, reasonable and rational basis. You may not accept that. Because you see, when the arguments run, even in philosophy, like in philosophy also, they have very clear premises that we accept these things to be correct. And then argument runs. Outside that, they won't let you go. So you may not accept these premises, these parameters. But once you'll find that Advaita is the only scientific and logical system of thought. It's not religion. It's not philosophy. It's truth. The whole thing takes you to the ultimate reality. Buddha had this problem. See, all these Indian philosophies and other religions, they're actually total dualists. Even Sankhya is a dualist. Yoga is a dualist. Vaishesika and Nyaya, they are dualists. Purva Mimamsa is dualist. Vaishnavas, Shaiva, Pashava, they are all dualists. And what they do? They're continuously quarreling with each other. Why? Because they think they are right. Buddha, when Buddha came with his transcendental reality, whatever that might mean, big words, he demolished social system He demolished rituals. He criticized rituals. He said, I don't accept the Vedas. So what happened? India got rid of Buddhism itself. Why? Because howsoever exalted the teachings of Buddha might sound to his followers, fundamental structure is flawed. And what happened? Buddha criticized the then practices of Hindu religion. And Buddhists, they came up there with their own practices. You go to any Buddhist shrine, see the amount of rituals they have, and see the myths that they have built around Buddha. Basically, what you did, you demolished a system. You said that no rituals needed. You said that no myths needed. And you created myths, everything around yourself. What is idol worship? Idol worship is when you confine your understanding to a particular thing, this is God. Do Hindus do that? No, Hindus never do that. It is basically to remind you of the supreme reality. When you go to a temple, when we go to, say, Belur Math temple, when we look at the Vigraha of Sri Ramakrishna, it reminds of Sri Ramakrishna. But same thing is done by other religions too. Even Muslims go to Kaaba. You might go on, you may go on justifying it with this and that. It doesn't make, it's all same. Ultimately, these are certain practices that remind you of something different. What Advaita says that different schools of Dvaita, they are just like limbs of a great body. So, for example, me, I am a human being. So I have two hands, I have feet, I have teeth, and there's a tongue. In the process of my daily life, my hand may touch my body. That does not mean that my hand will be punished. I know that these are all limbs of the same body. If a mom has 4 kids, they quarrel. For a mom, they are all same. They are all her kids. Makes no difference to them, to her. Every school of Dvaita is accepted by Advaita. This is the greatness of Shankaracharya. If you go through the works of Shankaracharya, it's very interesting. Like when I was a young brahmachari, that is in early days, in the Ramakrishna mission, first 9 years you have to be in white cloth, that is brahmachari days. You can call probation. I used to find Shankaracharya's work extremely confusing. Like whenever there is description of creation, say in our Gita, Acharya Shankara goes wholeheartedly for it. When this Gita is talking about hell, Acharya Shankara goes fully in favor of the hell. When heaven, so it was so confusing. And later I realized, actually I read somewhere, then suddenly it clicked. Acharya Shankar has no objection to any of the theories. He has no fight with Pashupat, no fight with your Sankhya or Yoga. He has no objection to Islam or Christianity. Of course, he did not know of those things. And very surprising, he was from Kerala, but he didn't know about Christianity because Christians had already come in Chennai. So, like when Sri Ramakrishna came, the same philosophy. He accepted all religions to be true. By true means what? Sri Ramakrishna says, Advaita is the last word. Advaita, Shesh Katha, the last word. till that last word, till you reach the peak of the Mount Everest, all the paths leading to the peak, leading to the top of Mount Everest, they are all equally valid. But Mount Everest is Mount Everest. Advaita is Advaita. How they are linked? Says Advaita says that, well, you are also my own limb. You are not different from me. You are not something different from me. Because if I treat you as different, in that case you will become real. If you become real, then I will have to fight with you. If I fight with you, you are real. And if you are real, then I have to fight with you. I have no fight with you. I know. You are perfectly all right. Nothing wrong with it. Because ultimately all these paths belong to the mind. And mind itself is unreal. This is what we will see now. Verse number 18. Acharya Shankar adds in verse number 17 that every dualistic path, be that a philosophy, be that a religion, be that just a system of thinking, it is colored by love and hatred. Love for their ilk, hatred for those who do not belong to the sect. Look at these religions, look at the Christian world. It's easy for me to use the word Christian. I cannot use other words for obvious other names for obvious reasons. Christians, they love each other. They consider themselves even civilized. There cannot be anything more ridiculous than this. Anyone outside the Christian world, they need to be taught a lesson. So basically, your Christian is not colored by, thoroughly poisoned by the love for your own ilk, love for the likes of your own, and extreme dislike, hatred for others. Can you really call it a system? A system that is colored so deeply. It's soaked in the syrup. It is soaked in the juice of love and hatred. Love for their own, hatred for the others. Advaita has absolutely no issues. Everyone is my own. Even those who oppose me, they are my own. That's the beauty of Advaita. It's a very unfortunate that Acharya Shankar lived for such a short period that he could not preach the practical applications of Advaita. Swami Vivekananda did it. If you go through his works, you will see that what Swami Vivekananda preaches is the practical aspects of Advaita Vedanta. Universal brotherhood, synthesis of religion, harmony of religions, these all come only when you accept Advaita. No other religion. Do you think a Muslim will accept that Hindus are same as them? When Hindus are accepted as kafirs? For Christians, Hindus are infidels. And similarly, other religions, same. Religion of the book. If you belong to the religion of the book, then you are treated in one way. If you are not, you are jahil. See, how can you have harmony of religions? Because even if some progressive mind says that we are willing to accept as equal, their very sacred books, the fountainhead of their religion, will not allow them to accept. So one or two, there might be good people in every religion, be it Judaism or be it Christianity. Once one of these scholars, they were quoting about how those who do not belong to their faith need to be killed. So there were red faces, and the speaker said, "Gentlemen, I'm quoting from the Bible, that is Old Testament. Your religion is totally steeped in hatred and love for your own, raga dvesh, attachment for your own people, hatred for who do not belong to your group. Can you really call it a system of philosophy? Can you call it religion of peace? Can you call it even religion? Advaitam paramartho hi dvaitam tad veda uchyate. Verse number 18. Tesham uvaitha advaitam tenayamna viruddhyate. Duality is the effect of non-dual unity. Duality is just an aspect, not one duality. See, every religious faith that you can think of, every philosophical system you can think of, it is just an effect of non-duality. Because you see, from ordinary standpoint, cause and effect, they are different. Because if cause and effect are non-different, there will be total confusion. For example, raw rice and boiled rice. Actually, they are same. Cause and effect, they are same. But from our day-to-day life, from our ordinary understanding, these are different. But as you go higher, you realize that they are all same. Water and ice, they are both H2O. Ice and steam, they are both H2O. But as far as practical life is concerned, our day-to-day life is concerned, these are different. Where from this difference comes? We are coming back to that same old issue, is the mind. Every difference that we see, cause and effect that we see, different systems of philosophy that we see, different religions that we see, it's all born of mind. These are not ultimately real. Those with inferior intellect see this world as real. Why? Well, that's how their mind is trained. And how people with mediocre intellect see world as real and God as real, because that's how their intellect is. It's the mind that creates duality. Duality is not real. And that is why when you go in deep sleep, that state of deep sleep, or you go into some kind of unconsciousness, soon, etc., or in samadhi, duality vanishes. But the knowledge of non-duality doesn't come. That's the difference. Knowledge of non-duality comes only during nirvikalpa samadhi. After that, even when you come back, you see that duality is just a play of name and form. But when you go into deep sleep, you forget everything. Your mind is not functioning the way it should function. Duality vanishes. Why should duality vanish? Then, these dualists, they came up with this objection. Okay, fine, non-duality comes only during the state of samadhi. Once you come back from samadhi, duality persists. What a stupid argument. No, it doesn't happen. Once you go into samadhi, for example, Sri Ramakrishna, when he went into samadhi, he saw non-duality. When he came back, non-duality was the truth. But because he was moving around with people who would not understand non-duality, and that is why he had to keep his mind in the state of duality. But he knew all along non-duality is the truth. He says, tie this knowledge of non-duality in the hem of your cloth and do all the work. You perform all the work that is related to dualistic world, but know the non-duality to be the ultimate truth, non-duality to be the reality. So, Advaita never has any objection to Dvaita. Uh, Dvaita is perfectly all right. But if you say that duality is real, then we have objection. In this relative world, the world that is created by the mind, duality is a truth. But duality is not real. Having been said that, Advaita has no quarrel, and Acharya Shankar uses this very beautiful example. It says, one gentleman, he's on his elephant. During Shankaracharya's time, there used to be elephant. And this elephant is spirited, full of spirit. going down the road. There's a lunatic or maybe a drunkard. Unumattam. Acharya Shankar uses the word. Yatha matta gajaruda unumattam bhumishtam. So there is a gentleman on his elephant, spirited elephant, full of power. And there's a lunatic, matta, unumatta. Unumatta is a lunatic, he might be drunk, a drunkard, standing on the road. And he challenges this man, come, come. I am also on an elephant. Come, let our elephants have a fight. So what will this elephant rider do? He'll just smile at him and move on. Acharya Shankar compares every system of duality, every system based on duality, every philosophy based on duality as unmatta people, those whose mind is gone wrong, standing on the ground and challenging one who is sitting on an elephant and asking him to come have a fight with him because he is also sitting on an elephant. Well, this is the kind of comparison that Acharya Shankar brings. As far as dear listeners, you are concerned, I am concerned. It is for our own mind to accept or not accept. Because Mandukya is explaining things from the standpoint of scriptures logically and through various examples that Advaita is the ultimate reality. And we'll continue with this, where Gaudapada shows how non-duality is the truth. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna.